Dan the Wheelman here, and my very special guest on this piping hot day in the mountains just outside of Vancouver, British Columbia, if you'll pardon the shorts as a result, is this. This is the 2023 Ford Bronco Sport Heritage Edition. You can tell by the lipstick they've given it there, you can tell by the white wheels, and a few other features as well, which we'll get into a little bit later on. But I've spent some time in the Bronco Sport before. I liked it, and I'm looking forward to spending some more time in this one here. So let's go for a drive. We are in a heritage style vehicle, a retro vehicle, so we're gonna wear the heritage New York Yankee pinstripe hat, of course, as you do. So yeah, heritage trim. It's available with both the 1.5 liter and the 2 liter. There's a heritage limited version. That's the 2.0 liter one. This is the 1.5 liter. That means 181 horsepower and 190 pound-feet of torque. I've driven the 2 liter version of this Bronco Sport before, so I was looking forward to trying this one. We'll get to that in a minute. The heritage, what does that do? Well, it gives you the obvious stuff. Oxford white wheels with a matching Oxford white roofline. You've got the grille with the kind of lipsticky looking Bronco logo on there, and you've got the light blue paint. It's actually not available just in light blue. There's a red option, black. There's all sorts of stuff for paint. It's got the cool Bronco pinstripes down the side. This is a very cool looking vehicle. When I first drove the Bronco Sport a couple years ago and I did a video of it, I think I mentioned how when it first was introduced alongside the Bronco 2 and the Bronco 4-door kind of full-size trucks, I was like, Bronco Sport, what is that? But the more I've driven this one, and when I drove the other one previously, it makes a lot of sense. It makes way more sense than the Bronco 2 and the Bronco 4. Those two trucks are kind of like halo trucks. Yeah, they've got the Raptor version, there's the Everglades version, both of which I've also driven. But they're kind of these like very specialized things. This is a much more applicable vehicle. It's more fuel efficient, it still looks pretty cool, and it doesn't deal with all the crap that the other Broncos have been dealing with, the weird roof issues on the 4-door, the fact that the computer chips heavily delayed Broncos release, and people were buying Broncos without the chips going, you know what, that feature that the chip controls, don't worry about it, I'll skip it, I just want this truck. Like, this though has come through. It's a good family-oriented crossover, or like an outdoorsy person-oriented crossover, a lifestyle vehicle, and it's super cool. And now with this Heritage Edition, when they announced the Heritage Edition of this, I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Whereas 2 years ago, when these trucks, or 3 years ago, whatever it was, were first announced, I'm like, there's this weird Bronco Sport, and there's a Heritage version of it. Why? Now though, totally makes sense. This one looks super, super cool. And not only does it add those cool kind of exterior features, it adds a sunroof as well. Very cool looking and a really nice execution of that retro heritage theme. The one thing I might ask to change though is when it comes to the interior. It's got these kind of seats with this weird dingy, I don't know what on it. It looks kind of, I don't know, reminds me of what you might see in like a tour bus, like a coach to me. I don't think it's needed all that stuff. They could have done kind of a more simpler seat pattern, but the seats are comfortable. You still have the molly straps on the back here to attach all that gear to and all that kind of stuff, so that's good. And the good view out, good seating position, and that's all good. I just wish they made them look a little better. Otherwise, the interior is cool. I like the shelf they have up here for some extra storage. You've got Ford Sync 4 on here, which I think actually is a Microsoft property, but anyway, which looks fine, kind of more retro-looking gauges. It's not a digital gauge cluster, it's just an analog gauge cluster, but there is, a digital trip computer in there as well. The heater controls are all down here, easy to access, easy to control with gloves on. I'm a fan of that. It's got the dial style shifter. Some people are kind of don't love that. I don't really have an issue with it. I think it's just fine. And of course, you've got the GOAT modes as well. GOAT, although it stands for goes over any type of terrain officially, so it should be GOATT, but I guess that would be kind of redundant. Anyway, you've got 4 drive modes. You have normal, you've got eco, sport, slippery, and sand. So you've got all that kind of stuff. I've got an eco now. I'm in traffic, so that makes sense. Get the most I can out of that 1.5 liter 3-cylinder turbo motor, which of course is very much about making the Bronco Sport more efficient. Very cool truck, cool interior. I had my kids in the back at one point. Wasn't as easy to get them in there as I thought it would. The headroom's okay, but I did find the legroom, they were a little bit cramped, which kind of surprised me. I had to move the seats around a little bit, but I did get them back there and they thought the truck looked really cool. Truck, SUV, crossover, whatever you want to call it. They thought it looked really cool. So there you go. There's your 2-year-old and 5-year-old review of the Bronco Sport Heritage Edition. But yeah, cool in here, cool out there. Yeah, you are gonna find kind of a lot of plastic in here though. No surprise there. The wrap around here feels a little bit cheap, but again, it's a vehicle that's made to be a little kind of outdoorsy. It's made to kind of get maybe beaten up a little bit, scuffed a little bit. You know, there you go. This isn't a luxury crossover. And they've got a soft touch material on top of the dash anyway, and some along the sides of the doors as well. This is plastic up here. You hear that? So they do give you some kind of niceties in here, but it's a pretty kind of function above form style cockpit, and I think that's okay. A lot of people, that's what they want, especially if, like I said, they're using gloves or they're in kind of heavy, you know, snow gear or whatever, and they want to be able to pack their gear, attach to molly straps, wash out the car, and all that kind of stuff as well. Pretty deep center console, fit a lot of stuff in there, but the real star for me actually is this parcel shelf right here, and I've got a wireless charger here as well, I should mention. That's also another thing that the Heritage package adds, so some more functionality there for you. I don't have, when it comes to interior storage, practicality, whatever you want to call it, I don't have under seat storage in the back there, which is too bad. The last version of this Bronco that I tried, I believe it was the Badlands version, so quite near the top of the range, had some very pretty usable storage underneath those back seats, which I don't have here, and that's one of my favorite aspects though of this Heritage Bronco Sport, as it was when I drove the Bronco Sport previously, when it comes to the practicality of the vehicle, is what's going on in the cargo area. I have a $225 option, which divides the cargo area with kind of like a parcel shelf, so you can load gear both below and on top of that, and that's great. And there's a couple of legs on there that come out and let you use it as a picnic table. Very cool. You've got a bottle opener back there too, and it's got a dual tailgate, so you can open just the glass if you want, or the whole thing. And when it comes to having a dual parcel shelf like that, that's important to be able to do, because sometimes you don't want to have to open the whole gate to get to the lower level. You just want to be able to get to the stuff on the top. So you pop open the glass and you can reach the stuff you've loaded on top. Maybe keep your more required items there, the stuff you need to be more accessible, coolers, that kind of thing. Keep that on top, keep your sleeping bags or whatever below that, and then you can access that top stuff just through the glass tailgate there. Very cool. All right, so we're gonna get on the highway here and let this 3-cylinder turbo stretch his legs a little. This is not the only 3-cylinder turbocharged car available in North America. There's a couple other pretty significant ones. The main one being the GR Corolla, which is a kind of rally bred supercar version, all-wheel drive of the Corolla. And so it's not like you can't get some power these days out of a tiny little 1.5 liter 3-cylinder motor. And this one here, 180 horse, 180 horse thereabouts, 190 horsepower, 180 horse, 190 torque. Not bad, and even makes a bit of a noise when you let off the throttle, like a rally car. Kind of surprising to me. That really kind of gave me a bit of a double take there, which I found interesting. And it's got some good get up and go. The Bronco Sport is not a hugely heavy vehicle. I'll put the curb weight on the screen right here in just a minute. Even with the all-wheel drive this one has, it's not that heavy. And when you want to get on it and you're in sport mode as I am now, you let that transmission kick down a little bit, you get some good response from it. It's not the smoothest operating engine. It's not going to be perfectly balanced. It's 3 cylinders, it's not an even number, but a little bit harsh but it gets you going. What it doesn't have, though, and what I think would be kind of cool considering its kind of sporty nature, it doesn't have paddle shifters. It doesn't even have a manual mode at all. It's got an L for like low mode, but no manual mode, which I guess is kind of a bummer. As far as handling goes, I do like the responsiveness through the wheel. I like the feel too. What I don't love is the body roll I'm experiencing. Again, this is not a performance SUV. I don't have, or a luxury SUV. I don't have self-leveling air suspension. I don't have adaptive dampers. I don't have that here. So I just, even still, I have found myself bracing a little more. I've driven this road a million times. For turns, I don't usually brace myself quite as much for. Not in a vehicle that's kind of this size anyway, so I do feel a bit of roll through these turns, but I do like the steering response. I like the feel through this thin little wheel here. There's another Bronco Sport. They're everywhere. But you're gonna wanna keep your body in check here. You wanna brace yourself a bit for some of these faster corners. It's called the Bronco Sport, and it does feel a little more on the kind of, you know, athletic side than you might think from when you consider its kind of crossover, family mover, lifestyle kind of background. Well, I guess a lifestyle is probably like a high-performing turbocharged vehicle as well. It feels a little bit old school in that way. It feels a little bit like kind of a bare bones kind of mini truck in that way. And I think that's really, really cool. More of a simple feel, not too kind of heavy feeling, not too, you know, not too isolating, all that good kind of stuff. It's not a performance crossover, I wouldn't call it that, but it does give you a little more kind of shove, both when you hit the throttle and as you take it through the turns. And the fact you've got all those extra drive modes, you can do some proper off-roading in this as well. You've got the ground clearance, you've got the fact that the corners are all nice and square, very easy to see out of, very easy to line up on a tight off-road trail. I should know, I've done it. And you kind of get that bonus there as well. It's a really neat take on the idea of a crossover. It's a bit of a segment that Subaru's kind of had a real kind of toe, or like real firm grasp on over the years, with stuff like the Forester or even the Outback or even the Impreza and the Crosstrek. And Ford is doing its best to kind of wrest that away from Subaru. Now, it's never going to replace Subaru as a kind of approachable all-wheel drive equipped crossover. I think Subaru still, with Crosstrek and so on, still kind of has that, you know, that segment a little bit on lockdown. But this is for the first time, I think, ever in a non-Subaru product that I've really felt that this is a really good answer to that. It's common, like a Tacoma or like a Crosstrek, to see these Bronco Sports driving up and down the Sea to Sky Highway to Whistler, near where I live, with skis all over them, huge roof racks, tents, all that kind of stuff, because Ford has made this a very attractive vehicle for outdoor enthusiasts, which is not as easy to do as you might think. All in all, though, the Bronco Sport grew on me when I first tried it, and it has continued to grow on me with this cool Heritage Edition. And it's like I said before, as cool as the full-size Bronco is, this one it makes more sense. It's more comfortable to drive, it's more efficient, it's got plenty of room inside still and plenty of neat features. It makes more sense. The Bronco is more of a halo car, the Bronco Sport more of a real-world car, and this one here, the Heritage package, gives that little halo twist as well, which is kind of a neat combination. I like this little crossover. I'm a big fan. I think it ticks a lot of boxes for what you need. It's a neat kind of unique take. We talked about the comparisons to Subaru, but kind of a unique take on the compact crossover genre, giving you the choice. They give you the capability, not to mention both the 1.5 and the 2-liter engine option. Very cool. Very cool thing. Too bad about the no underseat storage. Talked about a couple other kind of slight issues I have with it, but it's nothing big. All in all, a very cool, a very usable, and very unique compact crossover. And I like all that. Thank you for tuning into this short video of the Ford Bronco Sport Heritage Edition. Hope you enjoyed it. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do. If not, no hard feelings, of course. You can follow me on Twitter at DanTheWheelman and on Instagram at DanTheWheelman as well. So until next time, thanks again for tuning in, and Sayonara, folks.